We're rolling? Rolling. Laura, thank you for joining us today.
No problem.
I know you've taken me around the corners and, you know, we're late and delayed, but we're here. So I do appreciate you, joining us, and you're a busy woman, and I really appreciate that. So I just want to say thank you for that.
No problem.
If you just wanted to kind of tell me who you are, what you do, and go from there.
Yes, so my name's Laura Miano. I'm a sex therapist. I've been working in the field for about 6 years now.
Yep.
I run my own sex therapy practice called Miano Clinical Sexology. I do that in Paran. And I've been working on my own for about 6 months now. Before that, I was working at another practice. So that's my kind of sex therapy work. I also run a sexual wellness brand called Posmo. And we sell pleasure products. We have our own lubricant. So yeah, I kind of like to do both the clinical side and then like the pleasure side. But yeah, in my work, I see people for lots of different sexual concerns.
So many common. What would you say some of like common things that people come up to you with and like kind of ask?
Yeah. Well, the most common ones would be low desire. Mismatched desire in a relationship where one person has more desire than the other, and how they like navigate that. Erectile dysfunction is one. Premature ejaculation, struggles to orgasm, and painful sex.
Oh, wow.
They're the main ones.
Very interesting. Going back to your clinic, so is it based here, and is it? So can you just expand a little bit about your clinic? For those who are watching, if they need support or professional, they can come to you.
Yeah, so about my practice, it's based in Paran.
Yep.
And yeah, people can basically just visit my website. It's called Miano Clinical Sexology. mianoclinicalsexology.com.au is the web address. And yeah, if people are interested in booking in, they can just fill out one of the inquiry forms on there, or they can just book straight in.
Yep. And then kind of go from there.
Yeah.
And, I highly recommend. So a lot of people that have problems,
Yep.
reach out, get the
Please
professional help.
Yeah.
What is libido? I feel like a lot of people kind of overlook this stuff, but what is libido?
Yeah, so I would more so call it desire. So desire for sex is when you want to have sex, and it can come up both psychologically.
Yep.
So it's you thinking to yourself that you want to have sex with someone. It can also come up in arousal. So if you start to experience arousal, that is also a way that you are desiring someone. It can come up also just in your movements, like pulling closer to someone. So it can come up in lots of different ways, but essentially it is the experience of wanting someone sexually.
Okay, understandable. Yeah, so it's like, because I feel like a lot of people don't kind of understand the meaning of that word, and it's just like it's overlooked, and it's important. So it's kind of like explaining a desire for someone, whether you're married, in a relationship. That's understandable. Yeah. How do we tell when it's kind of low, when when things are on the low side? How do we kind of tell? What are the indicators?
Yeah. Okay. So an indicator would be, if a client comes to me with low desire, I would firstly assess where the low desire is happening. So if it's happening on a solo level, they're not masturbating, or if it's also happening in their relationship, or both. Then I'll ask them when it changed. So there could be, a certain time, maybe something stressful happened, something changed in their life, and that led to the desire shifting. But often people will basically experience, a lack of interest in sex. They might find that when they are having sex, they struggle to get aroused. Sometimes people can have no desire, but then once they start having sex, they get aroused. That's a bit more of a complex one.
Understandable, yeah.
But yeah, they might not masturbate, they might not have partnered sex, they might not fantasize anymore, they might not get excited by the things that they were getting excited by before. Even little things that increase their sense of desirability, like getting dressed up, acting confident,
kind of changing the way you dress, the hair color,
feeling
like that.
Sexy.
Okay.
When people don't have desire, those kinds of things might fall off track as well.
Okay, very interesting. At what age do you feel like it starts to decline for man and woman? When does it start?
So
Everyone
actually,
asks these questions, you know? And it's just like, when does it really start to?
so bombshell, it actually
Oh.
doesn't.
Wow.
It doesn't decline. There's not.
Wow.
Elderly people can still have desire intact
Okay.
from a physiological point of view.
Okay.
What does shift though is as you get older, you know, your circumstance changes. You might be, you know, more stressed. Your living environment changes. Maybe, you know, your partner isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things can impact desire. But, you know, it might not be as strong as it was when you were younger with, you know, hormones and things like that. But desire stays there.
Wow.
It shouldn't
That's
leave
like a
for
big.
good.
You pretty much hit me for like a big frying pan there.
Yeah.
I didn't really expect that. I thought there was like
Yeah.
a kind of a. You hear people telling me, oh, for a woman it's 36, 37, it starts to decline. You're kind of saying no, it stays there. But stresses and certain things in life contribute and bring it down.
Yes.
Very, very fascinating. I never knew that. That's a big smack on the head of that. It's like,
Yeah. It's actually interesting. I did, when I was in uni, there was some research about how in like elderly homes, STIs were quite high because elderly people were having sex because they were, you know, a lot of them didn't have their partners anymore. But because people didn't think that elderly people were going to have sex, there wasn't like prevention put in place, like education around that kind of stuff.
Wow.
So
Very interesting.
It stays there.
Yeah, that's a big bombshell, I'll tell you. So for the listeners out there, there is no age. Just do what you need to do.
Yeah.
This is a very common question that I get a lot, and I see it around. I want to know myself. Married people or in a relationship,
yeah.
the man's side, what does he always seek and look at more? He loves his partner, but he's always trying to seek other pleasures outside with other women. What is it? Why are we like that? Is it just inbuilt in a man, or is it the biology? They can be married, they love their partner, but they have this desire. Like if a woman approaches them, they're just all of a sudden, oh wow, yeah, I'm talking to you. And now they've forgotten their wife. Why is it like that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it depends and it varies. Have you ever heard of the Madonna Whore complex?
No.
Okay. So this is essentially, it's this theory that says that men can view women in terms of a Madonna. So like, you know, the mother of their children, the woman that, you know, nurtures them and looks after them. And then they can also view women, I mean, I won't say women are whores, but like, you know, in a more sexual way. Yes. And that sometimes when the woman that they love, you know, does birth their children and whatnot, the sexual desire is lost.
Yes.
And then, you know, the way that they are used to getting their kind of sexual needs met is through this other kind of woman, the more sexual woman, the woman that they view more sexually.
Would you say like they kind of get bored?
It could be that they get bored, yeah. But there could also be maybe this thing of like viewing the woman that they marry as kind of like a mother figure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they don't see like that woman in this like sexual way.
Oh, understandable. You see, you see it around like a lot of people, and I see it online with this question where they're like, they're married and they're happy, but then they're seeking. And now it kind of makes sense what you're trying to say. It's like, yeah, I just feel like sometimes, do you feel like it can be a sickness in a man as well?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think, you know, women are sexual and it's okay for a woman to be, you know, this motherly figure, but to also have this like kinky sexual side. But sometimes men can view, you know, maybe a woman that is like sexual as it shifts his view on her. There might be a like lessening, like viewing her as less maybe meaningful or less valuable, perhaps.
Or even attractive, would you say that plays a role as well?
Maybe less attractive, or it's like, you know, there's excitement by the more sexual woman, and then, the other woman just becomes more of this nurturing figure.
Very interesting. This is a question as well that I get nagged on with. How often should couples have sexual intimacy?
So it depends. There's no figure, and I would never ever recommend a number.
Okay.
because every couple is different.
Different.
Some people like to have sex once every 2 months and they're happy.
Wow. Okay.
They have busy lives, there's other things going on, they don't have high desire, and
Okay.
they just are happy with once every 2 months.
So it does add that some people have different levels of desire. The husband might have really high, the woman might have lower. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. In those kind of cases, that can be a little bit like trickier to manage,
Yep.
but on average, I mean, yeah.
A healthy number, you know?
I can't give a number.
Yeah, wow.
I just cannot because
everyone's just different.
everyone's different.
Yeah.
Some people want it 3 times a week, 5 times a week. Some people are happy with a couple times a month.
Okay, so you kind of you pretty much, you got to sit down with your partner and kind of go over this and just kind of say, what are you happy with? What am I happy with?
Yeah, because the other thing is, a sexual relationship is so much more than just the act of sex.
Yeah.
It's flirting, it's being attracted to the other person, it's complimenting them, it's touching them at little times in the day, having kisses with them.
Yep.
And all of those things are so important that it's also talking about
Wow.
it. And so partners can have all of that and then just not have the sex.
Okay.
And then there can be some couples that don't have any of that other stuff, but they just have the sex.
Okay.
And who's to say which one's happier? I don't know.
Yeah, you don't know.
Everyone's sexual relationship
Everyone's
is different. Yeah.
That's very, very interesting. When you look at it that way, I always thought like there was a healthy number where you would say like, 3 times a week or 4 times a week. So there's no number. It's
no
kind
number,
of
no
sit
number.
down and would you recommend to kind of sit down with your partner and discuss these things?
100%.
Okay.
So the most important way I would say to get on the same page with your partner and to connect with your partner sexually is to communicate about sex.
Okay.
So check in, say, are you happy with how it's going? Do you want something to change? What is that? If so, just having that conversation can be enough to make you feel connected.
I want to add on to that actually, which is very interesting. How do we approach both sides to your spouse and kind of let them know what you want, but don't hurt them? You know, you don't upset them, because I feel like a lot of people kind of approach,
Yeah.
and then the other person gets offended. It's like, am I not doing enough? Or how do we reach our needs without kind of upsetting them or bothering them?
So you mean if you're wanting sex, but the other person isn't wanting
Yeah,
to?
or like we want it more, or we need like certain things, certain kicks. And
Yeah.
how do you like approach your partner in a nice manner where we kind of don't offend them? Because some of them get offended. They're like, am I not doing enough, or I'm having enough? So yeah, in that way.
Yeah, I think navigating the differences in desire can be, tricky terrain, but essentially it's the person that wants sex is wanting connection and intimacy.
Okay.
So often in my practice, I'll see people who are the lower desire partner, and they're afraid to do any kind of like touching or anything because they think it will lead into a full sexual experience.
Okay.
So they avoid the intimacy entirely.
Wow.
And then that makes the higher desire partner want them more because they're not only starved sexually, but they're starved for intimacy.
Yeah.
And then when that high desire partner just tries to like get a little bit of something like a kiss or a cuddle in bed, the lower desire partner pulls away.
Okay.
So what I really encourage is to try and meet in the middle, have an open conversation about it. Also create a environment where it's okay to do a little bit, but not everything.
Okay.
I often will, because I'll say with those clients who
Like
have
a
mismatched
tease? Would you
desire.
say like a tease?
Well, yeah, it's okay to
Yep.
like say cuddle in bed naked.
Okay.
If you don't want to have sex, but you still want to connect a little bit, do that.
Yep.
Kiss a little bit, and it just ends there.
I think that's the problem. See, I feel like that's where some people get stuck. It's like now they
Yes.
want because they're turned on and they get stuck there, and then the words start to exchange.
Yeah. So,
And then you know.
yeah, I find this an interesting topic because there can be this expectation that if they do start doing a few things, then they should do everything. And I know I've had some men say to me like, I'll get blue balls, like I won't be able to control it. I think that because you expect it to happen, you will get more frustrated that it's not happening, and therefore that's when the blue balls will happen. But if you think about when you first start dating someone, it might be stretched out over sometimes a few months or, you know, maybe a month, and you don't get blue balls then.
Yeah.
Because you are patient. You know
Yeah.
that the woman is opening
It's a
up.
very good way of looking at it, yeah.
Yeah, you're not expecting it, so you're not getting anxious that it's not happening. So I encourage my clients to rethink that, expect that she just wants a little bit, not everything, and yeah, allow that process to kind of unfold a bit more naturally, because the more that you pressure her, the more she will back away.
To back away, yep.
Yeah.
And would you say it's the same for a man if a woman was seeking that?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of, I get what you mean. So kind
Yeah.
of like, it's like a negotiation team.
Absolutely.
But in a
negotiation.
nice way, we're not forcing things, we're not yelling, we're not... You're
Yeah.
right. It's a very interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
I never thought of it like that where you got, yeah, very interesting.
And also not yelling. I think it's a good way to say it is I want to connect.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, yeah, if the lower desire partner is just not feeling like sex,
Yep.
framing it as connecting is it shows that it's, I guess, a little bit deeper.
So wording is very important.
Wording's very
Communicating.
important. Yeah. Yeah.
Not raging and yelling.
Not raging.
That's where it gets out of control, and then both parties get upset.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And not shaming is a
No
really big
shaming.
one. Not
Wow.
saying like, you always want sex or you never want sex, like what's wrong, you don't even like me anymore. All of those statements are shaming.
Okay.
So it's about really try and create an environment where it's okay to want sex. It's
Yep.
also okay not to want sex. And come to the conversation with, a little bit more empathy and patience.
Okay.
And
Okay.
you will be able to navigate it a lot better.
Yep. So for the listeners, communication, please.
Absolutely. Communication is key.
Sweet talk, speak nicely, and just communicate, because
Yeah.
being angry doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
It causes that 10 seconds of anger and rage, you just erupts, and then the
Yeah.
whole relationship's gone, and it's just gone down the drain.
Yeah.
I want to touch base on stress.
Yes.
How dangerous is stress for both couples, man and woman, in their sexual intimacy or their relationship?
Yeah, stress is a big one. Stress plays into basically every single condition that I see in my practice. From just a relational point of view, sex can stop people from, connecting, from talking. It can make them kind of recoil and not stay open in their relationships. One thing I do see is if someone's stressed, they might back away a little bit more, and they'll kind of just be short with their partner, and their partner might not know what's wrong. The partner might think it's something that they did, when really this other person's just stressed because of something that happened at work.
Yep.
But because, again, this miscommunication,
There it is.
Then
It's
they
the communication.
disconnect.
Wow.
Yes.
Would you say that plays like the biggest role in kind of the disagreement when it comes to intimacy?
100%.
Communication.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because people aren't taught how to talk about sex and talk about emotions.
Yep.
And so that's where people, really go astray.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I kind of was interested to get you on to discuss these stuff, because you talk to some people and they start to panic and get all it's just like, relax. This is important stuff. This is biology. This is science.
Yeah.
This is who we are as people.
Yeah.
We need to learn how to communicate when a woman is not happy.
Yeah.
Or when she does want it, or when she doesn't want it.
Yeah.
How do you communicate with that? How do you discuss things with her? Are you forcing things? Are you raging, or are you getting angry? And that's where we need to kind of step out of it. But yes, I always realized I felt like stress is just like it's such a massive, like a bubble over this stuff. And
It
it
is.
stops from,
For
So would you
sure.
say, if you were to put like a percentage on it of how much it affects, would you say like 60, 70%?
Affects.
Yeah, like the intimacy or the relationship.
Well, it's an interesting one, because sometimes people, when they're stressed, they can actually crave sex more.
Wow.
Because,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
essentially, if you think about what sex is, it's skin-on-skin contact,
Yep.
it's connection,
Yep.
there's orgasms,
Yep.
and there's creativity. Because when you are having sex, you're moving in creative ways, you're expressing yourself in a creative way. All of those four things, connection, skin-on-skin contact, creativity, and orgasms, reduce stress.
Wow.
So it makes
It's a
sense.
stress relief.
It's a stress relief. So
Wow.
it makes sense that you would use sex to de-stress.
Okay.
However, some people, when they are stressed, their needs are heightened. So they might need a slower build-up. They might need more connection before. They might need to just hang out in bed, touch each other's skin, and talk for like half an hour.
Okay.
But someone might be afraid to ask for that or just think that their partner's not keen. And so they would say, I just don't want sex tonight.
Okay.
Because they don't want the usual sex.
Yeah.
But there's another type of sex that they could have, but there's a bit of navigating
Yeah.
together.
It sounds like a maze.
It is a
Pretty
maze,
much.
yeah.
A lot of men, what do you feel like, actually, when we have a partner and we say we're married for about a year or 2 or 3 or just a relationship, why do you feel like our desire kind of starts to slow down and it kind of dies? And I've seen it on the internet a lot where they're married, they're happy, but the desire starts to collapse. Is it multiple factors? Is it there's certain reasons, or is it just part of biology, just how we are, that we kind of our desire kind of dies? What is it?
Definitely multiple reasons. Every couple is different. Again, I see this so much in my practice.
It's like it's such a common thing.
So
it's
common.
like I've been married to my partner, but my desires are dying for her. Why? That's the question.
Yeah. Sometimes it can be, as marriages progress, you have kids, things become more stressful, financial stress, work stress. Maybe just living under the one house with lots of different people can be stressful. That kind of thing can become a source of loss of desire. However, one thing I do see quite often is when you're in a long-term relationship, your relationship becomes centered around like getting things done, becoming a good team, just mundane stuff.
Yes.
And if you think about when you first start dating someone, yes, you have lots of like chemicals that are being released that make you desire them physiologically.
Okay.
But from a context point of view, you're going out, you're doing fun things, you're asking great questions, you're learning about each other, you're being really present with each other. All of those things create desire as well.
Okay.
So when you have a long-term relationship, those contextual things change too.
Okay.
So if you're like just, your partner gets kind of the worst side of you, the end of the day but then on the weekend you have like plans with family and plans with friends where you get dressed up and you look all nice, and that's the time when you like make the effort to like look desirable and feel desirable. But then your partner gets the side of you that's just like always,
lazy.
end of the day, lazy.
Yeah.
That's not inspiring sexually.
Okay.
It's not inspiring.
So kind of doing activities, dressing nice for one another.
Yeah.
Looking good.
Looking
keeping
good.
Fit, being in shape.
Yeah.
Hygienic, would you say, is another one? Being
Absolutely.
because so these are stuff that are very important to kind of, because it just dies. It's just like something's wrong.
Yeah.
But you still love the person, but there's no desire there. It's just like, why is it at that level? So now it makes sense that there's all these contributors that we need to work on, kind of look good,
Yeah.
Would you say that's kind of, if you've had black hair for 2 years, changing the color of your black hair or the shape of it, does that might interest your...
Yeah, if it's something that makes you feel yourself.
Okay. So even
yourself.
dressing up, constant date nights, would you say is another one?
Trying to keep, like regular date nights for sure.
Because now it's finish work, turn on the box,
Yeah.
and just watch television. How dangerous is that?
Yeah, it's not sexy.
It's not.
Yeah.
And it doesn't move, and it becomes a rhythm.
Yeah.
And they're just stuck there, and then they get up and sleep. There's no conversation. There's very interesting, that so many factors contribute to this one question. It's one, but there's so many levels to it.
Yeah.
So constantly look sexy.
Not constantly. I'm going to be, because obviously I've got to be realistic.
Yep.
Like people have kids, that's hard. There's a lot to manage, but try and just put a little bit of effort in, like once every 2 weeks if you can, go on a nice date night or buy some new lingerie every now and again and, look nice, or go to the gym, feel fit, get fit.
Body
just
shape.
little things.
Tell me about body shape. Is it important?
Body shape?
In a kind of staying fit from a man and a woman's perspective.
Yeah, I would say it's important for, for your own mental health, for your own sense of desirability. It's healthy for you. It's good for your, like, physiologically as well. It's good for your body. I think it definitely plays a role. I mean, I would never say it's the one thing that impacts people. Like if someone came to my clinic, I would never say, you just got to go to the gym and then you're fixed. There's more to it.
Yeah, there's more to it.
But it's definitely a good one.
It's so interesting how the way you explain it, that there's dot points for everything. It's like levels.
Yeah.
To reach the top and have this amazing sexual intimacy and love, you just have to build everything constantly.
Yeah.
Which I find it very interesting.
Yeah.
The big question,
Yeah.
does size really matter?
Yes. Okay.
It's been going on for years and everyone asks the question. This is going to break a lot of people's hearts.
Really? Yeah.
It's going to break a lot of people's hearts. Doesn't matter.
Okay, so the answer is that it depends. Essentially, we have something called sexual accelerators and sexual brakes.
Okay.
They're things that turn your sexual system on and turn it off. So for someone who really, really cares about size, for them it's bigger than just size.
Yep.
It's like size means that they're more masculine. Size means that they're, you know, it changes the person's idea of the man with the certain sized penis.
Yep.
For them, size could matter
Okay.
because it's really, really important.
It's like a psychological.
Psychological.
Yeah,
That's
very
where
interesting.
it matters.
Yeah.
Someone that, you know, is smaller, they might not have that kind of physiological or physical advantage.
Yep.
But sex is so much like more than just the physical.
Okay.
So that person with the smaller penis could be, you know, maybe really dominant, or they know, like they can dirty talk.
Okay.
They compliment the other person. They do all these other things that make the other person like super aroused.
Yep.
So
Don't lose hope, the little people. Don't lose hope.
100%. I would say don't lose hope. Just work on the other things.
Yep.
Work on being able to connect, being able to understand what the girl likes.
Okay.
Complimenting her, make her feel sexy. Ask her how she likes to be touched. Do all of those things, because a lot of guys don't do that at all.
Yeah.
So the ones with the big ones
Yeah.
might not do that. And
Yeah.
sure, they've got that advantage, but there's so much more than that.
Wow.
So yeah, don't lose hope.
Don't lose hope
Little
to the little people out there. So it's like so there's an advantage and a disadvantage in both. But it goes back to an article or I commented on about where you're saying it was an article 2 where you're speaking about it's the mindset.
Yes.
That's where that adds on. We're having the right mindset and being challenging on how to turn on your wife or your partner. You know what I mean? Even if you've got a small size, you still have an advantage.
100%.
That's a bombshell to a lot of people out there because they ask the question and it's just like, you know. When masturbating, okay, so is masturbating alone, like, you know, being in a marriage or relationship, masturbating alone, is it harmful? Is it dangerous? You know, where you're kind of hiding it now at that level.
But you're hiding it. I would be wondering why they're hiding it.
So for example, just to add on a bit more, the wife doesn't like it. And now all of a sudden you're kind of hiding it from her, but you're doing it. What's leading us to that, and is it bad?
Yeah, okay. I mean, firstly, I would understand, is there something in their partner's sexual life that's missing?
Yep.
Is she satisfied with everything in that realm, but then she just doesn't want him to masturbate? I mean, masturbating is a healthy thing.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
So I would say, you know, sometimes she might be personalizing him masturbating, as in she might be thinking that he's masturbating, thinking about other people. That means he's not into her, but
she gets all jealous and then the fight happens.
But they're assumptions.
Yep.
So I would say, again, communicate about it. Maybe, you know, it's just something that he needs as his release. And people are entitled to have their own sex life, you know, in the sense of on a solo level, people are entitled to have that.
Okay.
But again, it just comes down to what two partners are okay with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So communicating. And would you say, so communicating is a big role. And would you say that maybe he's addicted, like he started this masturbation, would you say it's because he's maybe not getting enough relief with his wife or his partner? Would you say that's a contributor as well, and all of a sudden he needs more? Or just simply addicted?
I guess it depends. Like, it could be that maybe he's not getting, you know, his needs met in the marriage, and therefore he needs to masturbate to, you know, explore some desires that
maybe I feel like he could be afraid, you know, to approach his wife and say, oh, you know, I need more, because how she responds. And all of a sudden now he goes in his world and now he's masturbating. So I feel like that's how he kind of kicks off, you know?
Yeah, and that goes back to the shaming
Yep.
stuff. If he says to her, like, you know, I really want to try this thing, or, you know, I'd like to have it more, but she reacts in a negative way, like a don't ask that of me, or brushes that off,
Yep.
then that's when he might recoil and go into his own world.
Very interesting.
To do that, yeah.
So shaming in communication is like a big role. Like
Yeah.
it plays a good, decent chunk.
Definitely.
Would you say 50%?
I don't know about the percentage, but it's really, really important. It's like a
Yep.
fundamental thing
Okay.
to a sex life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Average length. How, for a woman, you know, what is like the data or the science that you've kind of come across or learned where a woman kind of likes the length, like this, like how long, the time, and for a man?
To be honest,
How long would you say roughly? Like, is it some people hour or 30 minutes is like the healthy side, or 20 minutes? You know what I mean?
I mean, sorry, when you said how long, I thought you
Yeah.
meant length. I was like, is that where this is going? Because I don't know the answer to that.
The length of sexual intimacy.
time.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. You kind of looked at me.
Yeah, I was like, length of time. I mean, so I would say it, for a woman, a lot of the time needs to be at least like 20 minutes of warming up
Okay.
before penetration.
Okay.
Some women might disagree. Some women might just rush through it because really they're not enjoying
Okay.
it completely. So they just rush to the penetration part so it can be done.
Yep. So
But-
foreplay, how important is foreplay?
So important.
Okay.
So important. So when a woman becomes aroused, all of these changes happen in her vulva. So
Okay.
her clitoris becomes bigger, her
Yep.
labia, like the lips, they become more puffy. Her pelvic floor muscles that surround her, like the opening of her vagina, they relax.
Yep.
Inside her vagina, basically it becomes like blood rushes to the area, like up behind the skin, and makes it more puffy. The uterus lifts up,
Wow.
and that also lifts up the clitoris on the outside of the body. And what all of these changes do is set her genitals up for penetration.
Okay.
If those, and that takes time. That
Yep.
takes, 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes sometimes.
Wow.
If penetration happens too prematurely before those changes have happened, it's likely going to be painful.
Okay.
Yeah.
So foreplay is very important.
So important.
And foreplay could be, we can even add in words, sexual words.
Yeah.
Kind of turning on, saying kinky stuff.
Yeah.
Making it feel cute. So
Yes.
it's not just go to bedroom and have sexual intimacy right
Penetrate,
away.
yeah.
It's
No.
kind of build it up.
100%. Yeah,
Okay.
build it up before the sexual context has even started. Like,
Okay.
start complimenting her. I mean, don't even do that on the day you want to have sex. Always do that.
Constantly.
Always, always.
Make you feel special.
Make it feel special. I always say sex isn't just when, you know, the intercourse happens. Sex needs to happen all the time.
Constantly.
In the sense of complimenting little
Physical,
touches, doing things for
emotional,
each other,
yeah.
connecting.
Yeah.
So if you do that, if you work on that stuff, that will prime both of you for sex. It makes it easier to access that side. And then when, you know, you're in the bedroom, start with kissing, touch each other's body from the external parts all the way, you know, into the genital area. But take your time with that.
Don't rush.
And speak to each other, connect with each other's mind. Then do the other things, oral sex,
Yep.
fingering, things like
Yep.
that. But all of the other stuff matters so much.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like it's a build up where a lot of people get stuck as well, where they're just like into action. But no, you got to kind of build it up.
100%.
Make it feel special. Both
Yeah.
both partners.
Both,
Make it
absolutely.
feel special and
Make him
talk
feel
to them.
sexy.
Yeah, sexy.
Yeah.
But it's in the constantly talking nice to her. You know, oh, you look beautiful today, or
Yeah.
you look amazing, or come give me a hug. But a
Yes.
lot of that stuff dies, and it's just people kind of figure how important that is in a relationship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To
Definitely.
constantly grow and evolve, and how important is communication after it?
After sex?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super important.
I feel like people just kind of everyone just goes their way, but cuddling, how important is cuddling, the talking,
Yeah.
especially for a woman? Let's speak about the woman's side. What does she seek after sex?
Often intimacy, because when it is sex without intimacy, it can feel a bit empty.
Yep.
It can feel a bit objectifying. So definitely intimacy after,
Yep.
cuddling. That's just in terms of like the emotional part. But in terms of just making your sex life better, have a debrief.
Yep.
Like ask each other what you liked.
Debrief.
Talk about, compliment the other person and all the great things they did. Maybe make a suggestion to try next time. Another
Can we add
one,
in lies in there?
Sorry?
Can we add in lies? For example, if she didn't do the best or he didn't do the best, can we say, oh, yeah, you did amazing? Do you feel like that's kind of a good lie to kind of make her feel better? Or is it, because if you just be honest with her, do you feel like it hurt her feelings or hurt his feelings?
That's a good question. And I think, again, it depends. If it's something that's kind of insignificant, then, maybe you can just boost up her confidence or his confidence and say that it was good.
Yep.
But if it's something that would help you to get more aroused next time, which ultimately helps them anyway, I would say it's worth having a conversation, and you can say it in a nice way, like compliment sandwich.
Okay.
Like, I loved when you were doing this thing. It felt really good. But maybe next time, do you think you could try and just go a little bit faster at the end?
Wow, that's a good, interesting way of saying it.
Yeah.
That's like a sandwich, yeah. It's
Sandwich.
nice.
Yeah. Because what that does is if you can get better and more resilient at giving feedback, that's how you'll get better. Think about it in a work context. If you could never give feedback at work,
you're never
the employees wouldn't improve.
100%.
You need to give feedback.
100%.
Sex is the same.
Communication, oral sex, build up to it. And then after the sexual intimacy happens or the sex happens, kind of get
Debrief.
intimate. Yeah, relax, sit down, go over it.
Yeah.
Never knew that it was so important to kind of have a debrief after it.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah,
Never thought.
yeah, it's a good one.
Because
Another one that is good as well in the debrief is clarify anything that was like ambiguous.
Okay.
So like a lot of the times people can think like, was he liking when I was doing that? Was she liking it? Or did she want
So
me
it's
to
actually
change?
healthy to talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
So in that moment when I did that thing, did you like that? Do you want me to do that more next time?
Okay.
Ask those questions.
Okay, very nice. I thought it would be a big kind of deal breaker for some people, but it's actually important.
Well, I mean,
It's such like a grey area. It's like,
yeah.
if you say something and you just say like, yeah, you could have done better, she might get like, whoa, wasn't I good enough?
Yeah, if it's the first time you're ever doing that, what I would say is before you have the conversation where you give feedback, say to them, even say, I saw this podcast, the girl was recommending to give feedback.
Yep.
Would you be cool if we, after sex just spoke about a few things that, we could try better next time?
Okay.
Always get their, yes, their consent to do it.
Kind of like experimenting.
Yeah, because if they're just going to get offended, then the feedback won't work.
Yeah.
The point of the feedback is for it to like progress.
So
things.
like evolve and kind of grow.
Yeah.
Communication. I never thought communication is so important, but it is important.
Definitely.
Key ingredients in a relationship. What are the most important? Like for a good relationship?
Okay, for a good relationship, I would say vulnerability.
Okay.
Really important.
Yep.
So being able to open up, talk about your feelings, be able to go to places with them that might be hard with other people.
Yep.
That creates depth. I would also say, rather than brushing things under the rug, address them.
Okay.
So important. So many clients that I see have like
Build
relationships, where they just keep the peace. They don't fight much. They're okay. But then 10 years down the track, they don't desire sex for each other because all of these little moments have built up.
Anger moments. And it's just like a build up.
Yeah.
So kind of, again, communication.
Communication. I would also say fun. Keep a sense of fun. So small things like you're doing the dishes or you're setting the table. Put some music on, dance with each other. Like at the end of the day when you're brushing your teeth together, like have a little dance, make it silly.
Yeah.
Keep those things there because that makes the relationship fun and playful.
Do you feel like some women kind of like to feel like they're young still? Like with their husbands to kind of play fight and feel young? Do you feel like that's something that's built in women as well?
I think both.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately sex
Feel like young, both of them.
100%, yeah. Wow. I mean, sex is adult playing.
Okay.
Essentially. So if you can keep playfulness, it helps your sex life.
Very, very interesting. How do we reignite the spark of sexual intimacy? Once it's hit this, boom, and they've come up to you and it's just like, how do we Laura, how do we re-spark this? How do we reignite this fire that's out? You know what I mean?
Well, a couple that have come to me saying that, I would ask, do they like address their conflicts?
Okay.
Are there like a million different, 20 different topics we need to go back through over the years when one person was hurt, the other person, did something they weren't aware of, all of that stuff. So go back, think about these feelings that you're holding on to, resentment, address them.
Yep.
The other thing is, date nights.
Date nights.
Keep the sexiness, keep the playfulness there. The other thing is schedule. So some people are so busy they just don't have time for each other. So it's really hard to like nurture a relationship when
How unhealthy is that when there's no time?
super unhealthy. There's no
Yeah.
time to connect.
Yeah.
Like you can't just go off the connection you had 5 years ago.
Yep.
Like it's something that needs to be constantly nourished.
Yep.
So
Do you feel like that leads to cheating?
yeah, it can. Yeah,
Okay.
because often, cheating can be when there's just disconnection. There's just not, the relationship isn't fulfilling during sex. There's, maybe a lack of this like passion, and that can then lead people to go elsewhere.
Very interesting, because cheating is I feel like it's a build-up. I don't feel like people just want to cheat for the sake of cheating. I feel like something lacks. There's more to it in a relationship, you
Yeah.
know? Whether she starts to look out, okay, but why is she looking out? Because there's something, maybe her husband isn't very hygienic or doesn't look after himself. It's not taking her a date nights, or he takes her for a date night once every 6 months.
Yeah.
And it's like she's starting to seek other pleasures now, like
Yeah.
from other people,
Yeah.
and she starts to feel special. People looking at her, and it's like the whole concept when people in a relationship and they get divorced and they go their own way, they start to look after themselves even more. Why is that? Like, you feel like
Yeah.
they start to just look good, new clothes, smell good, and everyone's looking at this person. But why are we lacking that in a relationship or a marriage?
Yeah, essentially when you're in a relationship, who you are becomes merged with the other person.
Okay.
So it's kind of hard to like break away from them and make like big changes sometimes. So that's why when people do go through breakups, they have this kind of like glow up, I guess, because they essentially have to form like a new identity.
Yep.
And sometimes when relationships get hard, they can really, really bring people down. You know? It's like it's associated with like early causes of death, I think.
Wow.
I have to get that figure to you, but it's like one of the most important factors in like good health is to have a relationship that is healthy. So when someone doesn't have that, it's like a constant source of stress.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, because you're trying to seek attention from your husband, but you're not getting because he's not around.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you start getting bored, and you might be walking down the street and someone looks at you, or a guy looks at you, and it's like, well, he looked at me, he gave me attention because I don't get it from my husband.
Yeah.
So kind of it goes back to that whole constant date night, looking good, feeling fresh, getting your hair cut, being hygienic. So it's so interesting that everything adds. Everything's like it's like a pyramid. You need bit by bit.
Snowball.
Going back to the reignite, what about when there's children involved? How do is it much harder for a couple that say they're married but there's no children to reignite that sexual intimacy? Is it easier when you have no children? And does it get harder when you have children?
Yeah, it's definitely harder when you have children.
Okay.
I would say trying to establish a good team is a really good start, where you've got like good flow with your partner. There's like, again, good communication. You're like, rather than being like, you should do this, it's like, I'll do this, I'll do that.
Okay.
Where you're kind of
Contributing.
Yeah, rather than like getting annoyed at each other, and it's kind of like tit for tat.
Okay.
And then however you can, like, again, those date nights, time to connect, keeping things fun. But it is more challenging with
More
kids.
challenging because there's children.
100%. It is.
You know what I mean? You're limited to what you can do. For example, it's not just easy dress up and go for a date night, because now you've got children. Now you got to kind of get them set up, and I think it gets easier as the children grow up.
Yeah.
But then the whole vibe and mentality changes, because now you've been married for 15 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's such a it's really difficult. I find that place, that little field when there's children.
100%.
It
I
gets-
think like offering to help each other is
Okay.
just really important. Like
Okay.
saying, is there anything I can do? I've noticed you're stressed lately. The kids are, really hard at the moment. What can I do to make your life better?
Okay, very interesting. This question's got two sides to it. So we're going to talk about the cycle for a woman, just very basic, and then the other side of the coin is when's the best time to be having sexual intimacy. So there's two sides
Yeah.
to a question.
So a woman's cycle is over generally 28 days.
Yep.
And in the middle of the cycle, there's ovulation.
Yep.
That's when basically estrogen is at its highest.
Yep.
So there's basically two hormones involved in the cycle, estrogen and progesterone.
Yep.
So yeah, when estrogen is at the highest, that's when the woman will be the most turned on, the most aroused, desire sex the most, generally. If you want to get pregnant, that's the best time to have sex.
Okay. How long does that last roughly? How many days is it?
I think it's about a week
Okay.
either side of ovulation.
Yep. So it's pretty much a week after the period time.
15 days. So
Okay.
the moment they get their period,
Yep.
15 days after.
Okay.
That's general, but a lot of people do have a regular period.
Okay.
So it
Yep.
depends. But and then after the ovulation in the middle of the month, then PMS symptoms can start maybe like a week later. That's when women might be more emotional, more grouchy.
Time for a man to be understanding, foot
Yes.
massages,
Yeah,
kisses,
be nice to
hugs, be nice.
her,
And how
yeah.
long is that period for?
It can be about a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Extra soft and extra kind.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
And then when her period comes, some women get more turned on, more like they desire sex more when they get their period. Some people don't.
Yep.
Just depends.
Yep.
But yeah, that can also be a fun time to explore.
Okay. Because a lot of men don't really understand the cycle of a woman, and they kind of like, oh, you're so angry, you're so frustrated. But hold up, man. There's a lot of hormone changes. There's a
Definitely.
lot of up and down. So it's
Yeah.
good knowledge for myself and a lot of people around the world to kind of understand that women go for a lot of changes.
Yeah.
Angry, emotion, give her a foot massage, be kind to her, be soft to her. And you can kind of feel when they're emotional.
Yeah.
And then they get all rude about it. But they don't mean to. But
They mean
they
to,
just,
It
it's...
happens, yeah. I think as well, and then before ovulation, like that week before, that's when she's peaking.
Okay.
So that's when she'll be like really confident,
Yeah.
more, I think I read once that women's hips sway more
Wow.
when they're close to ovulation.
Okay.
And that draws more of sexual attention.
Okay.
So yeah,
So
capitalize on that too.
So would you say that moment is where we're kind of being super intimate?
Yeah, that can be one of the better times to do it.
Okay, very interesting.
Yeah.
Never knew about that. I've got to read about that hip stuff. That's very interesting. In the nature of a man, do you feel like it's built in a man where he wants constant monogamy? Multiple. What is it? Is it something that's built into men, or is it nature, or is it just something that we've adapted?
Monogamy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
It's in a lot of cultures.
In a lot of
religion.
cultures.
Yeah, it's there. But yeah, if you could touch base on that a little bit.
Yeah. I don't really know a whole lot about this issue because it
Yep.
is a complex one.
Yep.
I do know that the kind of with the agricultural revolution,
Yep.
when humans started to like acquire assets, like they had
Power.
farmlands
Yep.
and things like that, they had crops. Marriage became, a way to bring two people and their assets together.
Okay. Yep.
So it was like an arranged thing.
Yep.
And then over time now it's started to turn into, something of, it's about love and whatnot. Whether it is kind of a natural thing or, a kind of man-made construct, I'm actually really not sure.
Yeah, it's very interesting because,
Yeah.
you see a lot of people where they're just constantly, we're speaking about this before, they're constantly seeking more. They're married, they're happy, but they're constantly wanting more. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, I'd have her for another wife, or I'd have her as another missus. It's like, but you have one. Like, it's just a constant.
I would wonder if
Yeah.
that guy is able to connect deeply. Because,
That's a very, very good question.
going back to vulnerability, like
Wow.
the more vulnerable you can be, the more connected you feel to someone.
Okay.
Connection is so important. And if you
Okay.
feel like you're kind of hiding things, you're not being your complete vulnerable self, which takes a lot of trust, then naturally you'll kind of, this woman won't be as fulfilling as possible.
Yep.
And then you might look elsewhere for a bit more of a rush.
Yeah.
But truly, when you can have that emotional depth and vulnerability with someone, you feel so much more connected
it's a deeper
to
connection,
them.
yeah. Because a man will kind of lurk off, but a woman is very connected.
Yeah.
When she's connected with one person,
Yeah.
she's connected to that one person. It's very interesting. I'd love
is.
to read about it more and understand, Why do you feel like so many marriages or relationships become sexless? Completely dead. Like I was watching this show where he was talking about, she called the hotline, she's speaking to him, and she's like, I haven't had sex in 5 years. And she's married. Why does it reach to that point? Why does it get there?
Going back to what I was saying earlier, where like sex becomes associated with pressure.
Yep.
So if he's wanting sex, she like really doesn't want it. Any kind of sign of sex, so like kissing a little bit, touching a little bit, she will back away from, or it can be flipped, he can back away from too. Over time, there's the intimate, like sex has gone, then intimacy goes as well.
Wow.
So the kissing, the softness, like all of that stuff. And then often the person that's desiring sex more, they come up against so much rejection that they don't try anymore. So then they kind of stay stagnant. The person that has lower desire often feels a lot of guilt and shame, so then they will kind of avoid it completely as well. They will avoid talking about it because it brings up too many emotions.
Yeah.
They're afraid that the relationship will end if they bring it up. So I think it starts with lots of emotions, and then over time they just both avoid it because it just becomes too hard.
You've written about, would you say sexual anxiety connects to this as well? Because I've seen some stuff you've written about sexual anxiety.
That can be a reason, yeah. It can be that one person has anxiety, and then if sex becomes associated with that, then they will often avoid it.
Okay.
Anything that gives you anxiety, you'll have a tendency to avoid. Or you can approach it, but with like hypervigilance. But over time, you might start to avoid it, and then again, the other person feels rejected. They stop asking for it, and then But sexual anxiety is a big one, especially with men. Yeah. Actually.
Wow, men as well.
Yeah, with erectile dysfunction.
Wow.
That's a common one.
But they can't kind of get turned on?
They can't, they don't get an erection.
Wow.
Yeah, or they get one and then they lose it.
Okay.
That often happens when there's like a fear of losing their erection.
Okay.
So they'll go into sex and get afraid that they're going to lose their erection. That fear, that anxiety then leads them to lose it.
Wow. What's the kind of solution for that? Just kind of...
Yeah, depends. But how I like to work with it is I'll explain to my clients, regardless of what your body is doing, like erection-wise, you're going through an emotional experience.
Yeah.
So in the same way that outside of sex, if you were feeling anxious about something, you might just say it to your partner. You might ask your partner for a hug. You might just say, hey, can we talk about this? Whatever it might be. You can do the same thing during sex.
Okay.
So you can just like slow down, hug, say you need a minute, but just be honest, be open. Yeah. And
communication.
Communication. And like sometimes, men might be like, oh, that's not masculine. But I would say being led by fear of not expressing your emotions is probably less masculine.
Okay.
Just saying that you feel a bit like stressed.
Okay.
And like that you're not afraid to say that.
Okay.
I would say that is not.
A lot of guys will struggle to do that.
I know.
A lot.
Yeah.
And then it goes down to, is it ego or is it, does you feel like he's less manly? It's a very big place.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of men struggle there.
They do.
You know what I mean? It's like when they're in that moment, they're not going to really just kind of, but what you're saying is it's important to just kind of be honest and say, this is overwhelming me. But it's just difficult for a man.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. This is probably more important around the world. Men finish too quickly. Is it a psychology thing? Is it a mental thing? Is it an emotional thing? Is it a physical thing? They all ask, I finished too quickly. What's the fix? Or there is no fix. If they come up to you and they say, I've got a problem and I finished too quickly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So there can be a few factors. From a psychological point of view, what can happen is stress and anxiety can lead men to go into sexual experiences and not be aware of what's happening in their body.
Okay.
So essentially, you would go through the sexual experience, your maybe arousal is at like 2 out of 10.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden, it's like 8 out of 10, and then you ejaculate.
Yeah.
And what happens is they're not aware of that process going up.
Okay.
It is going up, but they're not aware of it.
They're not aware of it.
That's one thing.
Yep.
Another thing is they don't adjust the sexual experience for their arousal levels. So
Yep.
I see this one so much. During masturbation,
Yep.
if they want to slow down, they will. Let us do it. With partnered sex, they think they can't slow down because they think the girl, like, that's just, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So then they'll just keep going hard and fast.
Yeah.
Naturally, after a certain amount of time, that's going to lead to ejaculation.
Yeah.
Another thing I found is they go hard and fast because they want the girl to respond.
Yep.
That's fine, but you will ejaculate.
Yeah.
So it's about like being able to slow it down,
Yep.
adjust. The other thing I see from a psychological point of view with premature ejaculation is when you're stressed about losing control, it makes you more likely to lose control.
It adds on more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A really good example of
Yeah.
it is if you're out in public and you like need to go to the bathroom,
Yep.
you're fine. Then you go to the toilet line, the bathroom's right there. All of a sudden you need to go.
Really go?
Yeah, you need to
Wow.
go because you're
Wow.
stressed and you
Wow.
start to think that you can't control.
Yes.
That's what happens with premature ejaculation.
Wow. It all goes back to the article you wrote, the mindset.
The mindset.
So
yeah.
kind of controlling emotions and feelings, and it's crazy the way you explain it, which is very interesting. So it's kind of understanding emotions, backing up a little bit, maybe doing some
Yeah.
foreplay,
Yeah.
and just cruising and not feeling like it's a race.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens. It's a race, and then they finish, and they're like, it's only been 3 minutes. Shit.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then he starts to shame himself because now the woman is like, 3 minutes, what's going on there? You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
was expecting 20 minutes, but he's gone for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting stuff, you know?
Yeah,
So
slow
kind
it
of
down.
slow it down, relax. It's not a race, you know, not a
Yes.
Formula One race. Yes, there was an article I was reading about a couple of days ago about couples having sex only when they're drunk or when they're drinking after. So can you explain a little bit about this, the dangers and the good?
Yeah. I wrote an article on this recently. So it's interesting when you drink alcohol, your prefrontal cortex,
Yep.
which is the part that is involved in your brain in understanding consequences, rational thinking, acting in line with your values, all of those things start to inhibit. They start to shut down a little bit. So if you have some sexual shame, you know, you have modest, like sexual values around sexual modesty, you know, all of these kind of values and beliefs around sex that in a usual day-to-day context, you know, that's what you live by. When you get a little bit drunk, you let go of some of that stuff. And then the sexual,
boundaries.
and then the sexual side can really come out.
Okay.
So some people can rely on that because it can be really hard to get out of that mindset,
Yep.
that like structured way of thinking. And then it can become a bit of a crutch.
Okay.
People rely on it too much.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it becomes like a rhythm, and then they get addicted to it.
Yeah,
Very
they
interesting.
can rely on it.
Do you feel like intoxicants kind of enhance sexual intimacy?
Yeah, they
Whether
can.
it's like drugs, alcohol, marijuana, all these kind of stuff, do they enhance it?
Depends on the drug.
Okay.
Alcohol can enhance it to a certain degree. You know, if you feel a little bit tipsy, it can help to enhance. But then after, you know, I can't remember how many drinks, but then it starts to decline generally. With other drugs, it also depends. I actually, in my uni degree, I wrote an assignment on weed and how weed affects sex.
Wow.
Because a lot of people find that it enhances sex.
Okay.
Because it enhances their senses.
Okay.
So sex is a sensory activity, so it can make things feel nicer. Also, time slows. So, you know, your experience of arousal and orgasm are prolonged.
Okay.
So that can make it feel better. But some people, you know, might find that when they smoke weed, they don't have a good experience. So in that case, sex would be bad. So
Very interesting.
yeah, depends.
So there's always good and bad, the kind of sizes of it. Okay, understandable. Modern day dating.
Yeah.
What do you feel like? What's wrong with it nowadays? From an expert, you're seeing hundreds of people. What do you feel like is a main concern or main problem that's happening?
Yes, I would say there are a lot of problems with modern day dating. I think dating apps are really problematic.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, I think there is this sense of fear of commitment because there is always someone potentially better one swipe away.
Wow.
That leads people to not persevere with things. It leads them to not problem solve as much because when things get a little bit hard,
they can just swipe.
Go back on the app and find someone else. And then that means that, people, can sometimes get into this cycle of just never settling and never committing.
Okay. Because they can just swipe.
Because they can just swipe. So I know that's kind of a problem. But then there's also loneliness as well. There are a lot of really lonely people at the moment that are struggling. And yeah, I think
it's pretty disappointing. I see it a lot. I try to motivate some certain people that kind of come out of that shell, and it's just like they're very lonely, and it's just like
super lonely.
And I ask them like why, and then they're like, we're kind of afraid of rejection.
I know, and I think it's a really tricky time for men as well because men are being told you can't do certain things, and this is threatening, and there is merit to some of those things. You want everything to be consensual and respectful. Yeah. But I think men also don't know what is right now and what is okay, and now there's a fear to just kind of back away completely. And I see it with dating apps where people might approach someone on a dating app, but for example, you might walk past someone in real life, they don't say hi to you, but then they'll be on a dating app and say, hey, I think I saw you. Yeah. There's this whole real life experience that's gone now.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
But the social aspect of it is kind of collapsed.
Yeah.
Just the way you said it, you can see them on the road, but they're so afraid.
Yeah.
But then on the app, it's like, I seen you today.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just easier just to text when you could just...
Yeah. Easier to text, easier to not experience rejection, easier to not maybe risk someone thinking that you're being creepy.
Okay.
But there's such a big difference between being creepy and being like a pest. Yeah. To just saying hi, hey, I thought, you looked really beautiful. I wanted to say hi.
How sexy is that for a woman, for a man, when you kind of...
So sexy.
Ladies and gentlemen, everyone hears that.
Do it. Yeah.
Do it. Men that are out there, do it. It's, I've always wanted to know how important it is, and now we've got it from an expert like yourself saying it, really sexy, where just a guy comes up, and how would you say, just a quick, you just look very beautiful, or what would be some interesting or sexy comments you reckon a woman would find attractive?
I would say maybe don't say sexy because,
that's too straightforward.
That might be a bit too just taking it to sex, without knowing someone.
Yep.
You could say, I thought you were really beautiful. I just saw you walk by. I really wanted to come and say hi. Okay. I hope it's okay. But would you be interested in going on a date, or would you be interested in exchanging numbers?
Okay. So it's sexy. It's a priority.
It's sexy. I mean, that's my opinion.
Yep.
Some women might find that it's not that, but I know that me and all of my friends like that kind of thing. Yeah. So
just walk up, say, hey, how are you? You look beautiful, beautiful day, and just have a conversation.
Yeah. And look, if she says no, I'm not interested, then that's okay.
But you know what happens there? He's crushed, and he's never going to do that again because he's felt rejection. But
what I actually do is when men approach me and I'm not interested, I'll say, I'm not interested, but I really, really appreciate you approaching me.
Oh, that's amazing.
So other women out there, I would say do that, say that to men so that they can do it more, and but without having their feelings crushed.
Breaking their feelings. Yeah. Where should we pretty much come and seek professional help from yourself?
I would say whenever you just start to feel dissatisfied with your sex life. Sometimes that might be when you are experiencing physiological symptoms like not getting an erection, sex is painful, not orgasming. But that can sometimes just be you're feeling anxious during sex. Yep. You're struggling to relax. You're not enjoying sex. You feel like there's the passion is lost. Maybe you've got a wandering eye. Just if you feel like there's any kind of challenge.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, technically, people can also book in if they are happy with their sex life and they want to, improve
Experiment
it even more.
Okay.
Totally, like if they're interested in kinks or even just interested in connecting even more.
Yep.
Also possible to book in.
Can you
for
touch
too.
base a little bit on kinks and fetishes, please? If you can
Yeah.
kind of, people don't really understand what it mean by kink or a fetish. Oh, I got a fetish. Okay, what is a fetish,
Well, they're really culturally constructed.
Okay.
So like, for example, in like, Australian culture, a foot, being interested in feet might be considered a fetish.
Okay,
But
yeah.
I would say like in the Arab world, maybe,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would say that's not a fetish
Yeah.
because it's kind of normalized,
Yeah.
right?
It's like seeing white toes on a woman.
Yeah,
It's like, oh,
yeah.
wow, that looks so nice.
Yeah.
So that's a fetish.
Well, it just depends. Basically, it's anything that is unconventional.
Okay.
So if
Okay.
anything is unconventional to what's happening in the culture, you could call that a fetish.
Okay.
Or a kink. A kink is more of like a practice. A fetish is an interest in a thing, an object, a person, something specific,
Yep.
like feet. A kink is like just interested in unconventional sexual acts, like being dominant, submissive, tying up. What else? Like, what's the word?
Like dominant. Some women like, a man who's been really dominant.
Dominant,
in the bed.
yeah. Sadism and masochism, which
Wow.
is like enjoying being humiliated
Okay.
or enjoying humiliating
Okay.
someone else.
So it goes
Yeah.
back to, it's actually very important to kind of communicate with your partner about this stuff, the stuff that you like and dislike.
Yeah,
Okay. 'Cause
Without
then
shaming.
without shaming.
without shaming, yeah.
If you had one advice to give
Yep.
to the people out there, what would it be? Just one when it comes to sexual intimacy or relationships. One very important thing that you think is very important to save people out there.
To save people, get vulnerable.
Okay.
Be vulnerable.
Okay.
Talk about the things that are hard in relation to your sex life. Talk about the things that you're not feeling so good about. And if you're, when that conversation is opened up, be respectful.
Yep.
Don't shame each other, but get more vulnerable outside of the bedroom when you talk about sex, but also during sex as well. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Laura, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. I've learned
you.
a lot. Hopefully the people out there have learned a lot.
Yeah.
I think I've become a master now.
Yeah.
Hopefully when we get
Budding
married
sexologist.
Got to go to university and study. It's been an absolute pleasure. I really, really appreciate you coming on. Give us some time. And hopefully the people out there that are watching, if you need professional assistance, reach out to your clinic. What was your clinic again?
Miano Clinical Sexology.
Yep. Book in an appointment and get the expert help.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I
Thank
think we're all
you.
done. Thank you.